let's go on to what the three P's approach was that we've always implemented. And I say we, I mean, as a team, either working with a manager or working with staff, that I've always tried to take into an organization when I go to. And it just helps streamline a little bit of the thinking and the process about delivery of the program. So, first of all, obviously, we look at the people. We need people. They're going to deliver the program. They're going to be the ones who are going to go to war as such with the athletes or work in partnership with the athletes to deliver what we need to deliver. Um, the place, whether that's a single unit building or it's the organization as a whole, you can look at the actual infrastructure or you can look at an organizational setting. But the place that you work in is going to allow you to either do more or less, be able to be very, very creative or be, unfortunately, quite restrictive in the work you do. But that shouldn't mean that you don't strive to improve the environment that you're in. And part of that comes down to potentially innovation, of course, funding and resources and finance help you make a place better. But I've seen great work done with very, very little in the way of equipment. So the place that you work doesn't necessarily have to be a restriction on you. But of course, as you move up to better and better organizations, you get access to better and better environments. Finally, the philosophy. So what are you going to then take into that organization? And if you look at it, essentially it's what is needed in that place at that time, or what is required of that organization at that time. So a lot of the time when, for example, a new manager will go into a new organization, it will be to potentially stop a quite negative situation. And for all the best will in the world, whatever my philosophy might be around S&C and conditioning, we need to do whatever is required to win at that time. And fundamentally, that needs to still be maintained. Even when you're in a good organization, you're quite successful, you still have to win. But of course, when you're in quite a stressful negative situation versus a quite positive and highly resourced situation, your demands and your ability to do things are going to be very, very different. But when we go back and look at how we implement, say, in improving and empowering people, that's one of the things that when I come into an organization, I will try and give responsibility and accountability to the people that are there. Essentially, when I'm in a role of a head or director role, we have to utilize the people who are on the ground, who are working with the athletes all the time, to get on with the work and to use their skills and their knowledge to deliver the best program possible for the athlete and for the team. So that means giving them accountability and responsibility to go away and deliver the program within the parameters that are going to be set out in our philosophy. We also place a certain amount of demand on each of the people in the organization to improve not only what we're doing, but to improve themselves. So that means going out and doing regular CPD, going out and doing study visits, networking, internal CPD and sharing, and certainly sitting back and helping to formulate whatever the philosophy is that we might look to implement to improve that, augment it, change it as we need. Because certainly when you come into an organization, you need to take the local knowledge that exists within the organization and help to, I suppose, help to formulate it or fit it into the mold of that organization. Over time, as we come to looking at the place, we need to maximize the resources and then improve the resources that we have available. So while we might start off with a nice mold of the organization, over time, we really need to break that mold, improve it, expand it, and hopefully that gives us a better chance of doing the final thing, which is winning, and winning more often, winning more regular, winning consistently. And all of those kind of cultures that we build into the gym or on the pitch or so on are all going to allow us to do that. But of course, as sport has developed, it's become far more complex. So the amount of people in the organization and what we're being asked to do has fundamentally changed. So if we look at the organizational structure that now exists in potentially a professional football club, it can look something like this. Now, I've spoke about this in a paper with Martin Bouchard, where we looked at roles of people within organizations. That one specifically looking around performance. But this is something I presented before on the UEFA Pro license with the FA, is looking how clubs now organize themselves in terms of all of the different functions that need to exist to allow the team to work and the team to hopefully perform. So the more modern organization will have something like a sporting or a technical director, which will oversee a lot of this. In the past, it may have been just the football manager. The football manager would essentially have managed all of these areas, but as sport has developed and as I suppose sport has improved to some extent, we've now seen some of these responsibilities taken away from the old school manager and moved into the sporting director. So areas such as operations and recruitment and maybe overseeing the staffing of around performance or analytics or performance analysis all would necessarily come under that type of role. Whereas a head coach will now come in essentially to coach the team, to pick the team, and ensure that we win games. Now, whatever the strategy might be around winning games would essentially be left to the head coach. So if you look at the coaching strand here, the head football coach would essentially look after all of those kind of things, assisted by his assistant coaches and whatever staff also maybe club-based or club-appointed who will work with him and the players on the pitch every day. Most of the other parts of this wheel will be overseen by a sporting director. And what he will have is heads of each of the departments, so whether it's head of performance, who might oversee everything from sports science to nutrition and S&C, medical department, data, recruitment, or operations. This is the kind of structure that you would probably expect to see if you're going into an elite sporting environment, or certainly an elite football environment nowadays. Now, the reason behind a lot of this structure being implemented is essentially when it comes now to changing staff at a club, and you will have read many or heard many times about a manager leaving a club. In the past, if a manager left a club, he may have taken a lot of his staff with him. So he might have taken the fitness coach, he might have taken the analyst, he might have taken the coaching staff. So when the club made a change like that, the next manager would walk in and a lot of the previous knowledge of either the players or the organization or how they trained or whatever would have left the building. Whereas nowadays, the idea is that you will have club appointed staff who will persist through managerial change. And that makes it a lot more consistent now in ensuring that from an organizational standpoint, whatever is being delivered consistently. And that's one of the big hurdles that we probably have overcome over the years, which is we can now have consistent delivery of whether it's the S&C philosophy or the medical philosophy or the organization and logistics. It's far more consistent now. It's not changing as each new head coach comes in. At the outer layer, we have people who are dealing with strategy. In the middle layer, we have people who are fundamentally focused on delivery. And then we have those people who are going to be very, very close to the athletes who are in the direct support capacity. So you might have the head of medical who may be a doctor or a physio who's potentially quite office-based. You may have some physios who are lead in rehab, but you may also have some other staff who will deliver the program far more close to the players. So this is your kind of organizational wheel that you would see in football. And as an S&C, you're probably going to live in the performance strand and you'll work under a head of performance who may be from one of a number of streams. It may be a sports scientist, it may be a previous S&C coach, it may be a nutritionist, it may be somebody from a different sphere who might have a wider ranging title. But essentially that is where your kind of common and garden S&C is going to work in that kind of strand. Now, some organizations may split sports science and S&C into separate strands, but essentially this is what my experiences have been.